Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining Warren and I today when we're talking about how has the CTO job market changed. Warren, thank you for accepting my invitation to join you on LinkedIn Live.
Adelina, it's always a pleasure. Thank you. And hello, everybody.
Let's dive straight in. As you know, I don't like to waste a second, and we
No,
only have half an hour. So, Warren, you're a CTO recruiter and you specialize in this. You have a lot of love your perspective. Why has the CTO job market been so quiet in the last 2 years, in your perspective?
okay. That really is a $64,000 question. So I'll
64, that's
try
very
and keep it as
precise.
yeah. I'll try and keep it as to point as possible. So the obvious thing, economic uncertainty, the cost of living crisis, um, has definitely had an impact.
Mhm.
There's absolutely no arguing about that. There's then quite a weird thing that happened post-pandemic, and I describe it as post-pandemic one and post-pandemic two. So post-pandemic one was a real anomaly where money was being thrown, good money after bad, and often, and I'm talking around the institutional investors, and there was a lot of activity in the job market. So that was post-pandemic one, but since that, we've seen what I describe as post-pandemic two, which are I guess, the hiring adjustments. Now, that, broadly speaking, is where there's been businesses who perhaps haven't been as frugal, haven't planned their runway out as well as they should have done, and that's had an impact because they've had to lose key hires within their business that they took on during post-pandemic one. There's been an increase in focusing around what I would describe broadly as cost efficiency. Um, Basically, businesses are making the most of what they've got.
Mm.
They're being more reluctant to go to market, and they're looking after the the great CTOs that they may have on board. They're not losing them. They're doing all they can to keep them as well. There's the shift to fractional, which has always been, at the interim, the fractional, the consultancy world has always been um, very clear element of our industry. But there's been more of a shift to fractional probably in the last 18 months to 2 years from what I'm seeing. Um, and most
So,
of that has been very positive. Sorry,
no worries, no worries.
I've got a
So,
slight pause.
okay, well, let's pick up on the point you said, and then I want to come back to the CEOs who've been recruiting CTOs.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what do you think has driven the fractional CTO market in terms of so many? Because I have seen a lot of fractional CTOs coming
Mm.
up on LinkedIn in the last 18 months. What's driven that then?
Okay, sure. So I'm going to take this from a positive view, in
Mm-hmm.
that there are a lot of um, very good, talented CTOs who, many of them, for the first time since they've probably graduated with their computer science degree, however many years or decades ago, have
Mm,
found themselves between roles.
yeah,
But they've never had to consider the fractional option or the
yeah,
interim option.
yeah.
And a lot of them, and there's some really good guys out there that that are now have become really successful and have got a real consistent um, book of business now that they've generated themselves. There are some that, for me, it's a lifestyle thing. Fractional, it's different to
Mm,
permanent in lots of reasons,
mm,
and it doesn't suit everybody. So there are a lot
yeah.
of people that have given it given it a shot, which isn't a very professional way of describing it, but they've given it a go. Some of them
Mm,
have been very successful. Others have. It's obvious. It's not doesn't suit their
mm.
personalities. Not that they
Well,
haven't got the talent, but their personalities as well. So
but I mean, I think to be a fractional CTO, you have to know how to sell yourself. And that's
yeah,
one say of a lot of CTOs. They don't necessarily know how to sell themselves. Um, There's a comment: is that a test before we bring them on board? Attitude because of the economic climate. Comment a bit more with some clarification, Gavin. What do you mean by a test before we bring them on board? Do you mean the attitude before they hire CTO? Please comment and let us know what you mean. We have a comment from Marius as well, who says, Warren, you say about the shift to the fractional, but I would notice lack of fractional positions or even a drastic drop in developer offers. It seems like a market we have to survive, though, until it gets better and keep improving our offer. I mean, I think that's a fair comment, Marius, that there's a lot of... What do you think, Warren?
I think going back on what you said a moment ago, it's about building a brand, and it's more important probably, or more powerful within the fractional offering. Knowing who your clients are, knowing an ideal client, knowing who's going to get most value from your fractional offering. It's quite difficult, I think, the market's not great, so you have to think outside the box. You have to do things that perhaps aren't that are going to be uncomfortable, particularly if you've never had to do it before.
Yeah. So here's a real question. I want to hear your answer. I'm going to give my own answer first, and I'd love to hear what you... So I had a few CEO clients who recruited CTOs last year, and there was a few interesting patterns I noticed. One of which was that in a tough market, the CEOs wanted fast, risk-free, concrete business results. Whereas in a buoyant market, they hire more for efficiency, to develop people and processes. There's obviously a lot more succession planning and internal appointments, like we were, I think, hinting at earlier with regards to CEOs, maybe promoting an engineer internally rather than paying 50 grand or whatever to hire a CTO externally. But the CEOs that I worked with felt lost in a sea of hundreds of applications, and they couldn't tell which of these people would actually fit us or not. And there was a lot of, I think the CEOs were making a road for their own backs, and I can carry on with that. But I'd love to hear from your perspective, what does a CEO want from a CTO in a tough job market compared to usual? Is there a difference?
I would take that one step further and kind of bat it back to you a little bit. Is that the best CEOs that I know already know the best CTOs in their marketplace. Now, they're only going to have one working for them at any one time.
Yeah.
But they will, I'm not going to say that it will be a weekly occurrence, but they will certainly network with them, whether it be in person, whether it be virtually. And I think this is one of the failings, and this is not giving me an opportunity to knock the talent acquisition sector, because I'm not. Some of them do a great job, but there isn't depth of knowledge within the networks, the relevant networks of the CTOs for a lot of businesses. And those that shine, those that flourish, know their market. They are essentially headhunters. They are search consultants. They are marketeers. They don't rely on job adverts as we have in the past. So I'm not giving you the direct answer, because I don't think there's a direct answer to it.
Well, I actually have a little bit of a direct answer, and I'd love to know if you disagree with it.
Go for it.
How about we do that? So I was speaking to my CEO clients when they were recruiting CTOs last year. They were the kind of reasons they were rejecting people were that some CTOs were seen as too general, having engineering management skills but lacking domain knowledge. Or the other category was seen as too technical, too operational, or too technical, but not strategic business focused. And the bottom line for both CEOs that I worked with was that, two in particular I'm thinking of right now, was that unless the CTO was seen as someone that had domain expertise in delivering concrete product or business outcome in a particular industry, i.e., for example, you're the wearables guy, you're a lithium battery lady, you're the SaaS platforms guy, you're the web mobile applications guy, you're the automotives lady, they wouldn't stand out at all for recruitment to these people anyway. So what would you say? Is that, does that ring bells with you, or would you say that I just have, because obviously I don't recruit as a job. For me, I was helping them on the CTO side and understand what kind of CTO they need for the stage of development they had. So I wasn't recruiting, telling the CEO this is the kind of CTO you need. And it was very
Mhm.
interesting that they were like, and by the way, they have to have industry experience, which was added by the client, not by me.
Okay. Um, the short answer:
Mm,
great talent is transferable, whatever domain, whatever industry.
yeah,
The outcome of what a great CTO delivers on, I believe strongly that you can drag them out. You can take them from uh, um, health tech to fintech to agri tech.
yeah,
Um, it's about outcome. It's about delivering a solution. A lot of the challenges, and you touched upon it there again, is a lot of CEOs. They're like a child in a sweet shop. Oh, I want that one. Oh, hang on, actually, I want that as well. I want, and they don't focus enough, and they should be, because these are professional businessmen. And I'm not going to give lessons to these people. I'm a recruiter. I'll be very humbled to even be put in the same breath as them. But essentially, they're not clear enough on outcome. They're not clear enough on what exactly they
yeah,
want this person to
yeah,
deliver on,
yeah.
as a core business strategic outcome. If it's not business strategic outcome focused with an element of leadership, putting together roadmaps, blueprint, it's typically not a CTO
Of
for the
course it
phase of the
isn't.
business.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I think what I'm trying to say is that my observation, and please challenge me if you disagree, okay? I don't like disagreeing all the time with people. So, challenge me if you
It's a
disagree.
healthy debate, Adelina.
Yeah,
It's a healthy
exactly.
debate.
So challenge me, because obviously you're much more experienced than I am in this. As I said, I don't recruit CTOs for a living, right? You do. But what I noticed was that the CEOs were more picky than usual. It was not just, oh, I want them to be able to achieve this business outcome. It was also, and by the way, they have to have worked in my industry and they have to have launched a product that's similar to mine right
Mm.
now. I had not seen that level of pickiness before, and that's what I wondered. Is that kind of level of picky you've seen? And we have so many comments that we need to go through. I'll let you answer, and then we'll go through some of the comments.
So yeah, I think if a CEO has a wish list and they work in a particular vertical or domain, they will they will have as part of their wish list that somebody's already delivering within their industry. But that's not a watertight guarantee that they're going to deliver for them, because
Exactly.
what have they been delivering?
Yes. Yeah.
They may be at a completely different phase in their growth. There's so many moving parts when it
Yes.
comes to hiring a CTO. For me, the most important thing is to get the key stakeholders at a business all on the same page and in agreement, because you can't start
Yeah.
speaking to people, potential new CTOs, when you're giving
Mm.
a inconsistent message. It's not a particularly good. What's what I'm looking for? It's not good for the brand. Let's put it that way.
So, in September this year, so a month, 6 weeks ago, I did a webinar on how to find a CTO role in a tough market. And in that webinar, I was actually talking about a few questions that the CTO really should ask a CEO at the interview stage, if not earlier, if they can,
Mm,
which is, what does success look like for this job in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months?
hmm.
And if the company doesn't have a very clear, simple, straightforward, measurable answer, then that's a red flag. Part of your job as CTO will be to help them clarify what it is that they need from engineering. Would you agree with that?
I would say it's an enormous red flag if you're speaking to the CEO of a business and they can't give you absolute clarity within 30 seconds of what they expect from
Yeah,
their CTO.
yeah,
Now, okay, there may be chaos, and they may need a CTO to bring order to that chaos, and but they need to know what is it that's so chaotic? What is it we've got to address?
yeah,
There are techniques that I'll use when I'm speaking to CEOs and founders and um, key stakeholders when hiring a CTO that will extract that information. But if you ask somebody a direct question, they find it very difficult to give you a direct answer. It's got to be outcome related. It's got to be about what is it you want this person to have delivered for my business in 6 months, in a year, in 18 months, and 2 years, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to look like, and that's what it's got to
And
come from.
yeah, so we have a really interesting question now from Pete King, and we have lots and lots and lots. Oh my God, we have so many questions. I'm not sure we'll go through all of them. So let's try and give super quick answers to all of the questions that we have. See if we can go through them by 4:30. What do you think, Warren?
Let's. I guess we need to. I'll pull my proverbial finger out and let's see if we can answer some.
So companies, Pete King says, so companies are making the most of what they have. I get that. In a scenario where the existing leadership, CTO and more, perhaps are not doing well, I'm guessing companies are supplementing skills, help slash advice with fractional help. What do you think, Warren? And I'm going to go
I,
to the next question. Yeah.
yeah, I would say the go-to is that they look internally.
Yeah.
So if
They
they
look
have, if
internally
they, yeah,
first.
that it depends on how forward thinking. I'm a great advocate for fractional. I think
Yeah.
again, depending on the phase that a business is at, but I think it's a really key and a really good resource to tap into.
Yeah.
But a lot of CEOs will look internally, or if they have relationships with third party, um, offshore businesses that do a lot of their engineering for them, that typically is where they tend to go to before they look at the fractional option.
Yeah. And I think also, I mean, from my perspective, I think the order seems to be that they ask for advice internally, then they look for a advisor or coach or whatever, and then if that doesn't work out, then often, to be honest, they actually, the CTO leaves the company anyway, and they hire a fractional CTO or temporary one to begin with, or whatever else. Right. So let's look at the next question we have. Nick says, a personal experience relevant to Adlina's comment that we need to know how to sell ourselves. Some time in consulting before going fractional has been very helpful for me. Excellent comment, Nick. And I think that's really well, really good observation. Oh, I see. So Gavin was saying, yes, rather than hire them as permanent members of staff, get them in as fractional first to prove themselves. What do you think, Warren? Is that?
I think that a lot of fractional consultants who are very entrepreneurial in spirit will often give an entry to a client that which is free. It could be an analysis, a free analysis of what their business is at the moment. Try it out for free. If you like what you see, then okay, let's discuss something more formal. So yeah, absolutely. There's definitely those options. I see that a lot. But
So,
it's got to be presented with real, what's the word I'm looking for? With prestige.
yeah. So Steve O'Donnell says, is the market the same regardless of age? What do you think of that?
Okay, as a 56-year-old, I'm going to say no.
Go on.
Because I don't want to throw an expletive out there, I'm not going to, but it really annoys me the amount of talent that's wasted.
Yeah.
Because there is a not this isn't everybody, but it's significant enough to pee me off. Where organisations, they won't say to me, "This is the age we want," but it's obvious that they have a perception of somebody, whether in their mid-30s to mid-40s, all of that experience that's going to waste for people that are 50 plus, that don't get an opportunity. It really infuriates me.
And why do you think they do that?
It could be a perception of longevity, that somebody's in their mid-50s, late 50s that have been successful prior are looking at their last hurrah before they go off into the sunset. How long we're going to have them for? I really don't know. I really don't know. But
Interesting.
I wish I did. But it's it's one of my bugbears. I'd love to see it change, but it's going to take some time.
I'm going to share my limited experience of this. Yeah, so, from what I've seen, the 50 plus years old CTO types that are very successful even in this market and always have job offers on the table are the ones that seem to have worked consistently in the same industry on the same types of products.
Okay.
Coming back to my point earlier, and I shared some of these profiles in the webinar that
Mm.
I ran at the beginning of September. People, the profiles of the kind of CTOs that I know, some of whom I worked with, that I know they always have a job offer on the table, regardless of how tough the market is. Comment from James Maxwell. I found the same. Employers want cookie cutter. They're not looking at transfer. And I think the reason for that, James, is because they can be picky right now, because there's a lot of
Mm.
choice out there with regards to full-time CTOs as well as fractional ones. Marius says, Adelina, specialization in the field is also an obstacle for fractional CTOs, as you need to keep the of each company. Sitting in healthcare and doing only this is a danger to the business, as it has the risk of sharing to the competition. That's a very good point, Marius.
Mm.
And does anybody have any comments or suggestions around that? Comment from Pete. My God, Warren, we are flooded with comments and questions.
That's good.
Pete says, yeah, it's brilliant. Love the interaction. CTOs need to be adaptable to change, navigate ambiguity, and much more. But I'd say that is the same for pretty much any senior role. Yeah, absolutely. Do you
Mm.
want to make any reply to anything while I'm going through the next question, Warren, so far?
Um, Hi, David.
I can read the whole question if you like
Yeah,
from
could you?
David.
Do you mind? Yeah.
Having seen a number of CTOs hired who do not have a good match on the technologies used at the company or domain knowledge, it seems like one issue for those looking to step up to CTO is an engineering manager will be used to selling themselves to technical people, and to be hired as a CTO, you inherently have to learn to sell yourself to a less technical decision maker. Was that a question?
That's a very good statement. Yeah, I would say that's quite a pertinent thing, and you see that quite a lot. It's knowing, I guess, it's reading the room and knowing who
Mm.
your audience is. So that's a good point, David.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that you nailed something there, David, because I think, like I was saying earlier, a lot of CTOs don't know how to sell themselves, and quite last week, it's because they never had to. Companies were desperate to gain their technical expertise in the business, and quite frankly, I mean, I had this, I covered this in a lecture I did at Oxford Business School, Oxford University Business School last week, where I told the CEOs at that executive course that CEOs are doing a disservice to their company by treating CTOs like just another engineer rather than an executive role. And some CEOs in the room said to me that they hadn't even realized they did that. They just thought, well, the engineers don't want to be involved in business. And I said, but that's
Mm.
not going to help anybody if they're not involved in business. And I think, yeah, I think Warren is right. Learning how to talk about, I think Warren, on an interview you had with, was he with Adam Horner?
Yeah.
You said that you talk about the ARR you've created for the business, not the type of technology you used.
Mm.
Did I misremember that?
No, no, you're absolutely right. For me, it's all about outcome. Of course, how you get there is very important, but it's most. Okay, without being too general, but most CEOs, founders, they're only worried about one thing, and that's ROI.
Yeah, return on investment.
Mm.
What are you going to get from my company? Well,
Yeah.
Rab Boyce has an interesting comment. He says, the issues that the title CTO means different things to different people, so that there seems to be more applicants in the pool than there really is. As a strategic business focused CTO, I'm often finding that I feel like I'm being interviewed for a senior engineering manager role, or architect, or even tech lead one. Nailed it. I mean, I think you absolutely Warren. I'll expand on that soon, but I'd love to hear your
Hey,
thoughts.
Rab, you're well. Yeah, 100%. There's this. I'm a big believer that, depending on the phase that a business is at, there's room for a CTO at any of these businesses, but understand what the role of the CTO is going to be at these businesses and be upfront about it. If it's in the bedroom phase, you're a full stack web developer with the job title CTO. If it's a world domination pre-IPO, then you're a strategic beast that sits at the front of the shareholder meetings, and everything in between. It's understanding that, but a lot of businesses want to give this badge, this. Sometimes it's a bit of a delusion of grandeur that let's call the role CTO. Let's see who we can get in, and that's when
Yeah.
you've got people like Rab turning up, really talented CTOs who perhaps can code but haven't had to code. Do you want to be paying somebody? I'm being a little bit facetious now, but you're going to pay someone $250,000 a year to cut code?
Yeah.
Not in the UK.
No,
Let's
definitely
get
not
real.
here.
Let's get
Yeah.
real.
Well, this is one of the things I noticed. That the job descriptions were a list of poorly written tasks, which made it very hard for engineering leaders to analyze if a job description is a match for their skill set and what they want to do. And I think the problem is the CEOs themselves don't know what they leader. And this is why I think sometimes I'm called to get some of the CTOs that I work with to do an engineering review to tell them what kind of CTO they need going forward. But those are the smart CEOs that ask me for that. Most CEOs don't seem to realize they need that. And I think it's almost like it's a moving target because it's very hard, I think, from the job descriptions out there to identify if this is an executive role or not. And you have, hundreds, 500 engineers applying for the CTO role, when actually it's not really a CTO role at all. Andy Skipper commented on, I think, a point that we made earlier about young, older, younger CTOs. And he says, I think a lot of entrepreneurs equate youth with the ability to hustle. VCs are very likely guilty of it as well.
Andy, I hope you're well. I'm going to throw a quick analogy in here. One of my first B2B sales jobs going back to the 80s, part of the interview process would be that they would ask the person being interviewed to stand on the chair during the interview. And if they did it, they had a very good chance of getting the job. If they didn't do it, they couldn't be manipulated and they were out the door. I think part of the perception of people that are older is that they're not going to be manipulated. They are too long in the tooth. And so that's a very good point, Andy. Thank you.
I'm displaying this question because there's a question I wanted to ask you before we end our Pete King asks, overall, do you think the CTO job market has changed for the better? And if so, what do you believe is the best approach now to uncover job opportunities? Excellent question, Pete.
Okay. I guess the two clear things now is, your reputation precedes you. Yeah. As a CTO. If it doesn't, you need to make sure it does. You need to make sure that you're not the best kept secret in your domain, in your industry sector, in your niche. Are we going to go to the States? Could I call it niche? In the UK, it's niche. To make sure that there's enough people that know what they will get if they invested in you. And there's a big gap with a lot of tech leaders right now who don't take ownership of their career journey. There's more people now that, years ago, it was, you left a job on a Friday, you joined the next role on a Monday because people knew about you. People knew what they were going to get from you. There's never been a time before where it's been easier to convey that message, but not enough people do. More people are now. But that's a really good point there, Pete. I'm glad you brought that up.
I mean, I think this is going to sound really cruel. I think, in a way, I think changed, and for the better, in the sense that I think it's pushing more CTOs experienced or to learn more about sales and more about business outcomes. So I think in that way, that's a positive change, because I think we need a revolution where CTOs are truly an executive role rather than a very senior engineer. The rest of the C-suite tells what they need from them. And how do you become someone who gets CTO roles before they're even advertised? I will share quickly four key points. I go on a lot deeper into this in the link in the comments. But essentially, I think you need to be at the forefront of developments and innovation in your industry. And this is where I think you need to look back at what kind of jobs have you done, what sort of products have you worked on, what sort of industries have you worked on. There's Batteries International, for example, has the Green Conference and Expo. I would look at call for papers. I'd look at call for speakers at these kind of events. If you work in batteries, then go to those kind of conferences, because you will see there'll be call for speakers, call for things that people would have worked on, and they want to hear from who've led things in their industry, even if they're not employed right now. So I think it's really important to be in touch with trade and industry associations, societies, magazines. Like, for example, in Cambridge, we have Cambridge Wireless. They organize Tech Week Cambridge. I mean, there's so many opportunities there to meet so many potential CEOs as well. And one of the biggest weaknesses that I have seen in the CTOs who don't have jobs lined up over and over again is they don't have market awareness of their employer's industry. Like, how many read the Financial Times while they're employed? I worked with who earned over £250,000 a year. They all read the Financial Times and read all the articles in their industry. You don't even have to get, if you're unemployed right now, you don't have to get a paid one when you're employed. You can literally get the editor's choice. I get it to my email once a month or once every 2 weeks. I can't remember how often I requested it, and it's completely free. And it tells me the mistakes that Netflix made, and the big great things that Octopus on Energy has made. And it's just brilliant because it helps me understand the various markets and how they're developing. And I would say a lot of CTOs don't do that. But anyway, Warren, I don't want to keep you much longer. Shall we summarize for people in 3 key points from your perspective? What can they do to increase their chances of getting a CTO role going forward?
Excuse me. The first thing is to recognize what exactly is their value proposition.
Awesome.
Why is it that a business will invest 6 figures plus equity to bring you in to their business? The second thing I would say is accept that you, at the moment right now, whatever industry you're in, that you are the best kept secret in that industry, and you have to change that. And the third thing is prepared to push your boundaries, to do things that maybe don't come natural to you, to do something like put a video out there explaining your views on a particular technology or a particular thing that's happening that's prevalent in your industry. But they would be the 3 things that would be I think the 3 key things, the 3 key points, the takeaways.
Fantastic advice, Warren. Thank you so much for joining in today. And excellent questions we've received, I think, all night if we were to carry on, because I think there's a lot of chatter and interest in this topic. Thanks for joining me, and have a wonderful rest of the week. And whoever's seen this, please feel free to share it. It's going to stay online, and do share it with other people. I think it will be very important to get a message out there. Thank you, Warren, and thank you, everybody.